Unlike the modern-day setting of Ka'anapali, Lahaina is a charming seaside town with a rich and colorful past. Join us as we talk story with some of Lahaina's kama'aina and learn more about this salty seaport's rich history.
We lived at 831 Front Street for about 20-some years. My mom had a restaurant there and we lived upstairs. When I was a young girl, my family started, this restaurant and bar. It was called Seaside Bar and Restaurant. It was located at 831 Front Street, where I believe the fish company is right now. It had a kind of like a two-part area where the backside was more for the adults and the bar. My favorite memory of having the restaurant would be being able to meet all the different people, making more friends.
Today, Lahaina is a reflection of its colorful past, and one of the most interesting things to do is to explore its history on a walking tour. The Lahaina Restoration Foundation publishes a guide that'll get you started. One important historic site that's not in the guide is the old Pioneer Mill, formerly West Maui's main sugarcane processing facility for over 100 years in the days when sugar was king in Hawaii. The recently renovated smokestack is now all that's left of the former mill. And in 2011, through the efforts of a mainland philanthropic group, 2 small-gauge steam locomotives that once plied the rails of West Maui's cane fields were brought back to Maui to serve as reminders of those days gone by. David Allaire of the Lahaina Restoration Foundation tells us more.
The story of how the 2 locomotives from the Pioneer Mill, the Launiapoko and the Lahaina, returned to us is very interesting indeed. We got a call out of the blue from a man named Alan Davis. He is the owner and chief executive officer of a company called Hydroelectric, saying that he wanted to return 2 locomotives that had once been part of our rail system at the Pioneer Mill. And we said, you bet, we'll take them. But then we had the big question, how are we going to get them here? And he said, we'll do everything. No easy feat. First of all, we had to go get the locomotives to where they've been for the last 50 years. One was in Idaho, one was in Los Angeles. It involved putting them on trucks, transporting them to the shipping port of San Pedro, putting them on a barge and sending them all the way over to Maui, and then carry them carefully across the Pali, through the tunnel, and all the way over to Lahaina, to where their future home is going to be, which is the former site of the Pioneer Mill in Lahaina. It involved a lot of community support and effort. All the people involved with the trucking and the shipping industry, and now we had a crane waiting for them. We had to gingerly take those trains off of those flatbeds and just put them down so carefully on our eventual display rails. That was probably the most difficult part of the whole operation. And the great thing was, the timing was perfect because we're coming up to Plantation Days, which celebrates the history of the plantation life on Maui. Then Mr. Davis said, I'll come over and give them to you in person. And we said, this is going to be great. It was a great event, and he received a standing ovation after he spoke to us. We are so excited to have these 2 great locomotives back because they're a gift to the people that were actually living here. We call them kapuna, that actually rode on these trains. They saw them every day.
It brought back my memories of going back to in the 20s. I said, my God, the trains came back. I lived right below the Pioneer Mill Sugar Company. And that's the time when I witnessed the train. And we used to stick on the train and ride back and forth also. And that was really something for us. Everybody from whatever age, that we all rode the train to and back to Lahaina. And they found their final resting place right in Lahaina. That's really home for the 2 trains.
They're so excited to have these back and to touch them and to show their grandchildren and to tell them of their forefathers who worked so hard in the cane fields and the mill. This is a history that they want to keep alive for future generations, for visitors and kama'aina alike. Come take a look at the history of Lahaina. See it firsthand. Climb up on those engines, touch them, look at the cow catchers, ring the bell if you must. But we'd love to have you come down and be a part of history in Lahaina.
For years, one of the most recognizable sites in the Lahaina harbor was the Carthaginian II, a replica of the 19th century brigs often seen in the Lahaina harbor in the last century. In 1972, the original Carthaginian sank unexpectedly after striking a reef just outside the Lahaina harbor. The arduous search for a replacement led to a 1920s freighter in Sweden. It took a Lahaina crew 110 days to sail to Maui and a rigging crew 2 years of outfitting to create the 19th century brig. Jim Lucky, retired manager of the Lahaina Restoration Foundation, explains the importance of restoring this historic vessel.
The 19th century history of Lahaina was the reason that the foundation wanted to have, and the community strongly supported, having a vessel here in the harbor that represented the whaling ships that came to Lahaina in great numbers. What that represented, in my opinion, is a wonderful example of community support for something that the community really wanted and really needed.
In 2005, the Carthaginian II was sunk and now rests on the ocean floor a half-mile offshore of the Lahaina coastline, where it serves as an artificial reef.
I bid adieu to the Carthaginian with the greatest confidence that she is not going away. She's just moving to another life.
Stay tuned for more of Lahaina's historical sites, coming up later in the program.